Welcome back to Burning Down the House. So in this video, I wanted to talk about the rescuer and the downside to compassion. You might be thinking, what does that mean? The world needs more compassion. How can there be a downside? What the hell? Here's the deal. If you're a really sensitive soul, you have boundless compassion and empathy for people who are suffering or who are going through hard times, you are freaking awesome. And yes, the world needs more people like you. So don't ever apologize or feel bad for being a kind, generous, loving spirit. And really quick, I'm not here to diagnose you. So it's not like, if you check all these boxes, then you're a rescuer and you have a problem. I'm literally just here to share a couple of thoughts. Everyone has to determine for themselves where they fall on this spectrum and, how relevant any of this is to their life. So as with anything else, take what you find helpful and discard the rest. So maybe you self-identify as the rescuer or you know someone who is. The rescuer is someone who is always trying to do just that. They're trying to rescue or save someone from a bad situation. They might be trying to rescue a family member or a friend, and the situation can vary. Maybe it's a financial situation. They're trying to pull someone out of the hole all the time, always giving them money, and it becomes a vicious cycle. It could be that someone they love is in a deep depression or funk and they're constantly trying to pull them out of it. Maybe even they've just invested a lot of energy and time into this person. They love them, they want to see them do well, but they're a little smothering. They don't give the person enough space to kind of breathe and figure things out and stand on their own 2 feet. Or they may have been abused growing up or came from an abusive relationship. And so now they feel a deep sense of responsibility or duty to save anyone else that they are concerned about that might be in an abusive relationship. They feel that they have to rescue them. Yes, compassion is a beautiful thing. However, by not implementing boundaries and acknowledging their limitations, the rescuer is putting themselves at greater risk of being exposed to chronic victims and energy vampires. There's the old saying that no man is an island, and I completely agree with that. We all need support from time to time. No one has it all together all the time, and it is not a weakness or wrong to ask for help. Unfortunately, for the rescuer, their compulsion to jump in and save is habitual and often backfires. And for the purpose of this video, I'm going to use the term the victim and the rescuer to explain the downsides. So downside number 1, the victim blames the rescuer. So the rescuer has the prescription for life. They're well-intentioned, but what they don't realize is their brand of medicine is not going to work for everyone. It's not a one-size-fits-all. They don't have all the answers. But they'll tell the victim, just do X, Y, Z. Take this pill, go to this church, follow this plan, or whatever, and everything will work out. But it doesn't. So the victim comes back and says, well, you told me to do X, Y, Z, and it didn't work. This is your fault. So, of course, in the end, the victim does not take responsibility for their life and the rescuer gets bit in the ass. Downside number 2, the victim may develop an entitled attitude. Perfect example. When I was growing up, my mother was the rescuer. She was the epitome of compassion, always trying to help people, mostly the sick and the elderly, in the church that I grew up in. Now, there was one older woman who had a lot of health problems, and even though she had grown children who could help her and run errands for her, my mother sort of volunteered to be this woman's number 1 helper. One week, my mother comes down with a cold. She's lying in bed, she's exhausted, beat up, trying to get some rest. The phone rings. She picks up the phone. It's the older woman who says, "The pharmacy closes in an hour. You need to go pick up my medicine." Now, my mother can't believe her ears. She's sick. She says, "I'm sick. I'm sorry. I'm in bed. I'm beat up, exhausted. I can't do this. Don't you have, she names one of the older children, says, "Can't they pick up the medication for you and help you?" And this woman's giving her attitude. Now, as tempting as it was to look at that situation and say, man, the nerve of that woman for being so entitled, the reality is my mother, in her abundant compassion, trained this woman to expect these things. Remember, my mother was volunteering her time out of the goodness of her heart. She wasn't a home health care worker. She wasn't a professional that was getting paid to do these things. Instead, she was the rescuer with no boundaries. If this describes you or you find yourself in this situation, it might be best to step back and reassess the relationship for your own protection. Downside number 3, the rescuer can become burnt out. It can be really emotionally draining and depressing when you know you can't save someone from a chronic illness or maybe a substance abuse problem. In this case, it can be really challenging for a sensitive and compassionate person to maintain distance and protect themselves emotionally. Downside number 4, the rescuer can become resentful. This one's a little more subtle, and if this describes you, if you are a self-identifying rescuer and you're starting to resent the person you're helping, you really need to take a step back and ask yourself why you feel that way. And again, I am not saying that you should regret the good that you do or that you should become a hardened cynic. But the reality is everyone grows and progresses on their own timeline. So if you find yourself becoming resentful or feeling like you're being taken for granted, that may be a cue that you need to rescue yourself before you're in too deep. The bottom line is, by continually trying to rescue someone, by not balancing your compassion with boundaries and self-protective measures, you are training the other person to rely on you, rather than teaching them how to harness their internal and external resources to help themselves. Basically, you want the other person to be able to stand up and say, I did this. I overcame this problem or challenge. Yes, I am grateful to those who helped me along the way. I'm grateful for their support, but ultimately I know that it's because of my inner strength and my inner reserves that I came out on top, and I know I can do it again. So anyways, in that same vein, if you're like, yes, I'm totally guilty of this. I'm always trying to save my family, my friends. I'm always trying to solve everyone's problems. I'm not here to guilt you, shame you. That is not my purpose. Rather, for you to look inward, practice self-care, temper your compassion with boundaries so that you can ultimately protect yourself in the long run. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button for future videos, and I'll see you next time.